Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you guys 3 types of business harm that oftentimes business owners don't even realize is harm. And I'm going to be talking about how you can identify this kind of harm and also giving you advice on how you can implement the messaging on how you protect people from this kind of harm into your content. Anyways, stick around throughout the end of this video because a lot of this stuff is not talked about online. And today I'm about to give you a gold mine of knowledge. Anyways, hope you enjoy. Okay, so the 3 types of business harm and how you can stop causing them. And also, how you can message. How you can set the message. Alright, anyways, so to start off, the first type of business harm is perverse harm, which is where a lot of people actually fall, where people have good intentions, but this idea or the way how you implemented it was wrong, so you'll get bad results on the other side. You know, a really extreme example of this, because humans do this on their day-to-day life too, is the Taliban. So when the Taliban was originally attacking the Twin Towers during 9/11, they thought that was right because in their ideology, they have a very hateful view towards individuals of different ideologies. And they were mad by some of the certain political things going on in the Middle East, and they thought that retaliation in a violent way was justifiable. In fact, this is an extreme example, but the same type of harm is to a less of an extent in terms of extremity common in the business world too. And an example of this could be your efficiency tool creates massive technical debt for customers. You democratizing platform makes customers completely dependent on you, or your product adds complexity while promising simplicity. This could be bad because this could lead to bad reviews. This could lead to lawsuits. This could lead to complaints. And you want to continue serving the customer 100% effectively and honestly. Now, the second type of harm is preferential harm, which is where you knew better but you chose profit. A really good example of this is FTX, where, I think everyone heard the story, but essentially Sam Bankman-Fried created like this crypto company or brokerage that a lot of people used back in the day. However, he created a sister company, Alameda, and then he withdrew a lot of the funds from FTX users' accounts and transferred it to Alameda so he can make really sketchy trades on it. And also he used some of the money for him and his friends' satisfaction. And the money got to his head, and he lived this luxurious lifestyle and thought that he could win it back through trading. But in return, he didn't. He lost a lot of money and ended up going to jail for several decades. And other examples of this could be hiding cancellation options to reduce churn, overselling features you knew aren't ready, and different pricing tiers to be confusing than helpful. And once again, the reason why this matters is because this could lead to really bad reviews. It will lead to higher churn, and with the combination of higher churn and bad reviews, it will be harder to get clients because they'll read the reviews and they'll be like, what on earth? And they won't want to rehire you again or get your product on board. And then this is malicious harm for its own sake, where the motivation is kind of unclear. You're just committing harm because you enjoy it. This is genuinely rare, but these are some of the examples. Since it's rare, I'm not going to go into detail about it. The good news is that if you're reading this article, though, you're probably not type 3. I'd say that the percentages are 70% of B2B SaaS companies are type 1, 25% are type 2, and less than 5% are type 3. Now, how exactly do you implement this into your content? And I also identify what kind of harm you're causing and stop it as well. Anyways, so first of all, you want to map what actually happens, not what you intended. So what this means is asking questions like, what problems did we create? In fact, I created a Venn diagram here, if I can find it. So versus harm, so 7 steps. So for instance, what problems did we create? Sorry, I couldn't find it on there. What complaints do we dismiss as customers not understanding the product? What would we change if revenue wasn't the constraint? What would our product look like if we optimized for customer well-being? And you can kind of map it on a diagram like this. So kind of like this, but in a more organized manner, of course. And then you can create two lists, intended impacts. You can write a list from your marketing copy on what you actually intend to give your customers. And this could be on, like, for instance, if you're a cybersecurity company and you're writing about how you want to solve SQL vulnerabilities, you could say my intended actions are X, Y, Z. Maybe X can be that you will do a pen test with some software, and then Y would be that that it would be like vulnerability proof from SQL injections, and then the actual impacts would be the customers testing it to see if it's actually SQL injection proof, vulnerability proof. Sorry. Anyways, another thing that I would do is ask yourself if you would tell your mother. So if you feel like you need to justify, rationalize, or minimize something that you're doing, then I would say you're in type 2 category and you might want to bring it up. You know, I would say that this is pretty self-explanatory, like, because if you're doing something bad, I think that people know deep down that it's bad. And when you have to think twice about doing something and it makes you feel morally insecure, I think that most likely you probably shouldn't do it at all. And you should question that the minute that you have a moral conscience about it. And then after that, you want to follow your incentive structure. So this basically means your compensation plan reveals what you actually care about. So what behaviors get rewarded financially? You know, like on your site about us, you can kind of talk about this as part of your values. What gets people promoted? Another thing, talk about it on about us. What metrics determine bonuses? You could also talk about this in like your company culture statement. So your employees can heavily rate you. And the higher ratings you get from employees, the better talent you'll get, because the good talent has a lot of choices and they won't go with companies that have bad reviews because they could go with a company that has better reviews. What would happen if we optimized for customer outcomes instead of revenue? You can say this, that you optimize for customer outcomes on your revenue, on your value proposition, and then you can basically state how you get those customer outcomes. So for example, if you're making some kind of software visualization software, you could say, I help X market get projects done significantly faster because they could see their work, and we teach them how to use an agile system where they have feedback loops to where whenever they have a task, we basically do it in stages. So for let's say there's stage 1 to stage 4. For stage 1, you turn the work in to your supervisor or someone who's more senior than you, and then they check for edits. And if you're doing a good job on stage 1 of the project, you move to stage 2. But if you don't, you get a feedback loop saying this sucks, here's why it sucks, fix this, and then you repeat stage 1, and then chances are you'll be more likely to move to stage 2 on the second revision. So you can add that as an example in your value proposition, but more concisely. And then you want to draw a direct line to incentives to customer outcomes, and you can also include this on your site too. Anyways, the next thing you want to do is test how easy it is to leave. So can customers easily undo their relationship with you? So if it creates a dependency, meaning customers can't leave without major disruption, your product creates switching costs you don't mention up front, you build moats that benefit you, not them, then it becomes harder to leave, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. They will eventually leave, and they'll leave you a bad review. And if it crosses slightly illegal lines, they could even put a lawsuit against you. Type 2 makes it deliberately hard. So contracts have aggressive terms you'd never sign as a customer. They could take you to court if the contracts are stringent enough. Canceling requires talking to retention time, and have someone neutrally say, evaluate your product. Is the pricing clear? Are the limitations obvious? Switch your product to competitor. How hard is it actually? and how much better is your product than your competitors. And in addition, I forgot to say, it's also about value. So like, is your product valuable enough on the market conditions to basically implement all all of these like features or all of these rules? And look at the market, look at what your competitors are doing. If your competitors aren't doing anything like this, then chances are then you're doing something wrong. But usually dishonesty doesn't lead to no good. So it's always good to be honest and not like a snake oil salesman. And then run the 10-year test. If you built a company for 10 years and never sold it, what would you be proud of that it exists? If your product creates unsustainable dependencies, customers need you to keep working because you didn't build for their independence, and type 2 harm becomes obvious. You wouldn't want to run this business forever. The compromise only makes sense if you're willing to exit. So it's pretty straightforward. I'd recommend thinking about this. And then you can add constraints, meaning identify, I think we talked about it here. There's constraints. So build reversibility, identify potential harm, and write harm user stories. And if you found potential harm, you could write it and produce it as a blog on your site, like the harm user story. And then after that, you can talk about how you minimize the chances of the harm occurring to the best of your ability in an organized manner that looks like this. In addition, realign incentives with customer outcomes. So for example, tie compensation to customer success, not just revenue. And you can also say this in your culture statement too, that sales gets paid on renewals, not just new deals. Product measured on adoption of existing features before buying new ones, building new ones. Customer success bonuses tied to outcome achievement, not upsells. So retention along with referrals, along with acquisition. And create an ethics veto. You can create this within your company culture as well. Anyone can flag a decision as ethically questionable, and also having a set of moral rules. Of course, obviously don't steal, but be better every day. Do your best. Always be honest. TLDR, stuff like that. And then applying the public documentation rule. Now, a really good example I have of this is that a company that I worked with had its pricing really complex, but then it started implementing tiers that basically were tailored for companies in their target market of different sizes, and also their specific needs that kind of went with their size. And because they created different tiers that were better tailored to different segments of their target market, they were able to make a lot more money because the individuals in their target market had more choices that were tailored to their specific needs. So the whole key here is to basically keep creating value for your target market, whatever it is, and implement continuous monitoring into your operations. And basically, based on your metrics, for continuous monitoring, you can kind of determine if harm is happening. If harm is happening, you can kind of address it by making your product better, and also addressing it in your marketing by maybe through your system, saying that maybe through a blog you could say we just noticed this, but this is fixed, and you could say the ways that it's fixed. Anyways, that's the end of this video. So I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, but if you didn't, you can leave feedback, and I'd really appreciate that. Anyways, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye.